This video is brought to you by RV 360 Solutions, where we're bringing the RV industry full circle by providing inspections, consulting, and training. Today we're going to take a look at specifically how this trailer breakaway switch, your emergency brake for your trailer, works, and how it ties into your tow vehicle and how it actuates your brakes. Before we get to that, let me just talk a little bit about these two trainers. First, we have our representation of a tow vehicle. So we're going to look at some specific components. First, the tow vehicle battery or the starting battery. Second is the brake switch. The third item will be the brake controller. And then finally, we're going to take a look at the 7-pin or 7-way connector. And then on the trainer, for the trailer side of things, we're going to have our house battery or your RV battery. Then we're going to have the 7-pin connector that plugs into your tow vehicle. We're going to have our safety breakaway switch. And finally, we're going to have our electric brakes. Under normal operation, this battery doesn't even need to be connected. I'm getting my 12-volt supply straight from my tow vehicle's battery, and my trailer lights, my trailer brakes, everything on my trailer works just fine until this 7-way connector gets disconnected. In the event that your trailer becomes disconnected from your tow vehicle, we want two things to happen. We want this battery to take over to be able to actuate our brakes, and we want our breakaway switch to send 12 volts from this battery all the way to our trailer. So again, today's video, we're going to talk primarily about this breakaway switch. And let's talk a little bit about the brakes. When I push this button, you'll see my brake lights go on both my trailer and my truck. And the other thing that you don't see is what happens with my trailer brakes. Let me just demonstrate. So all I'm doing through my trailer brake controller is applying a voltage to an electromagnet, which, as the drum on this thing spins, what it's going to do is pull this lever forward or back, depending on which direction you're going, and actuate the trailer brakes. Very simple. Every tow vehicle has got some kind of brake controller. If it's a newer vehicle, it's probably built right into your vehicle, and you can actuate it manually. So you'll notice when I do that, my brake lights on both my vehicle and my trailer come on. The other thing you'll notice is when I actuate this manually, I get my full voltage to my trailer brakes. All of that is using this battery, and I can prove that by disconnecting my trailer's battery. And let's just actuate it manually. I still get trailer brakes. So when my trailer is connected to my tow vehicle and everything in my tow vehicle is working properly, I don't need this battery at all. Primarily, when we're talking about the whole braking system, what this battery does is powers our breakaway switch. In the event that something catastrophic happened and your trailer disconnected from your tow vehicle, the first thing that is going to happen is it's going to yank this 7-pin connector out, which takes this battery out of the equation. So now I can hit my brakes and nothing is going to happen on the trailer. After this gets yanked out of the back of my tow vehicle, the next thing that's going to happen is this breakaway switch is going to actuate. And you can't see it probably, but it's putting my full battery voltage to my trailer brakes. Now my brakes are engaged, fully engaged, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it or not, but I'm pulling 3.53 amps to engage. Now remember, this is just one trailer brake. So if I've got 4 brakes, you can multiply that times 4. So as soon as I put, guess I wasn't quick enough. As soon as I put the pin back in, what it does is it opens up a switch in here, disengages my trailer brakes, and now I have no amperage running through this. So again, now we're not using the tow vehicle's battery. We're using our house battery if it's an RV, or just the tiny little battery that's specifically for your emergency braking system. To test your trailer brakes, there's a couple of ways you can do it. If you're going to test it, make sure that your 7-pin connector is disconnected, because we don't want to backfeed from our trailer's battery through to our brake controller. Some of the newer vehicles, that's just not a good thing for that brake controller. So leave this disconnected, and don't be afraid to pull this pin out. I recommend testing your breakaway switch at least once a year. So pull that pin out. If you've got a clamp on ammeter like this one, you'll immediately see that, like I said, I'm pulling 3.44 amps. That's going to this. Now, another way you can test it is be hooked up to your trailer, put your truck in drive, and just see if your trailer brakes are applied. But again, whenever this pin is out, my trailer brakes are engaged. And then put the pin back in and make sure that your brakes disengage. Don't be afraid to test this. And if you think that, hey, it's been sitting out in the sun for years and it might break, then keep a spare one. These things cost about $15. I actually have a couple of spares, and I have several different trailers. So again, there's nothing wrong with testing this switch, and I recommend testing it on a regular basis. Just keep in mind that we're disconnected from our tow vehicle whenever we test this switch, and we have to have a 12-volt charge on our house batteries or on the battery that's specifically designated for this switch. Again, if you have clamp on ammeter, and I'm going to actually go demonstrate this on my fifth wheel. If you have a clamp on ammeter, that's a great way to test the circuit, but you also want to do a pull test and make sure that your brakes are working properly. The purpose of this is to lock your brakes up, to stop that trailer as soon as possible so that it doesn't damage personal property, doesn't crash into other vehicles. So this is strictly a safety mechanism. I made a cutaway of just a standard trailer breakaway switch so you can see what's going on inside. So as you can see, with the plunger installed, it's keeping these two contacts apart. So one of these wires we would have our battery connected to, the other one would go out to the brakes. So as long as that plunger's in there, we're not supplying 12 volts to our brakes. So as I pull this plunger out, you can see that those contacts come together, and at that point our 12 volt supply is going out to our brakes. So it's actually a pretty simple mechanism. All we're doing is separating those contacts as that plunger goes in, and then the little indent in that keyed section locks in place to make sure that these contacts don't come in contact with each other. So again, very simple, very straightforward. So before we actually get to doing a test on my fifth wheel, let's just take a quick look at the electrical circuit. When that plunger is in, there is no connection between the battery and the brakes. As soon as that plunger comes out, we send 12 volts right straight to our brakes. Now we're out here at my Grand Design 303 RLS, and we're actually gonna test this trailer breakaway switch. So the nice thing is I have this Reese Sidewinder hitch, so I can push it out of my way, but it should be easy enough to get to this on your RV. So if you'll notice, coming out of this breakaway switch, there are two wires. One would go to my battery and one would go out to the brakes, and it doesn't really matter which is which. So I have my clamp-on ammeter on just one of the wires, and when I pull this little pin out, we would expect to see the amperage go up relatively high, because you have to remember, unlike my little test unit inside, this is actuating 4 brakes. So let me just give this a yank, and again, it comes out really hard, and you can see, just like we talked about before, it's got the little keyways, but you'll notice my amperage is sitting right at about 12.8 amps. And then when I put the pin back in, my amperage drops off to pretty much nothing. Okay, so that's going to do it for this video. So again, don't be afraid to test your breakaway switch. I test mine at least once a year, and I've pulled that out a number of times to demonstrate to people how to test it and how it works. So again, thank you for watching, and if you found this video helpful, please be sure to subscribe.